We're good? All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming to this presentation. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Bob Aycock. I'm the director of the Matthews Heritage Museum. I'm also the vice president of the Matthews Historical Foundation, and I actually am a Charlottean. So I was born in Charlotte and then moved to Matthews, so I'm a Matthews native as well. Anybody here in the audience from Matthews or have been here longer than like 25 years? Yes. And I actually didn't know some people in the audience, which is exciting, so that makes me feel good, like Miss Brenda. So, yes, I took over the museum as director last year. It's been a little bit over a year now. I'll turn it back on in just a second. The museum's been open for 11 years now. It opened in 2013, and I'll talk about where it's at. It is beside Christopher's in downtown Matthews. And for many, many years, it was the Help Center. This is a picture when it was the Help Center. And there'll be a bigger one on the screen. So we'll get started on this. But we're going to talk about a brief history of Matthews and the museum. And then we have some wonderful photos I'd love to show you. Let me just go back. So Matthews. Our history dates back before the 1800s, actually. So the area of Matthews was the hunting grounds for the Catawba and the Waxhaw Indians. So they would come up from the Catawba River Basin, do all their hunting, and then go back. Also do trading sometimes with other tribes. And then the early settlers came in the 1800s, started cutting down all the trees, and Matthews became known as Stump Town, which is not just original to Matthews. There's other stump towns around the country. That's just kind of a common name, cut down trees, it's a stump town. So that was the first name of Matthews in those early 1800s. And it was originally a small agricultural community, and it's obviously very big and thriving now, as we can see. So again, I talked about the Native Americans that were here, then the early settlers. The town was really founded around the time when the train came through. That really shaped Matthews. So the first train came through Matthews in 1874, making this December, I think it's the 16th, the 150th anniversary of the train coming to Matthews. And it was huge. That, changed everything, because obviously we could trade, we could send things to the coast, we could send things up north. And the railroad stop was named Matthews in honor of Edward Watson Matthews. That's where that name came from. The depot, which is beside Town Hall, we just found out was built in 1875. So there's a plaque inside that says circa 1880s, I want to say. But I was doing research with a foundation, paired up with a historian, and we found out it was actually built in 1875. And we're getting ready to have a historical transportation marker put up outside the depot. It'll probably be between November and December when that gets done. So I'm really excited about that. So here's some of the notable historical events. So before we were Matthews, we were also known as Fullwood, which is why you see the name Fullwood a lot of places. So John Miles Fullwood was appointed the postmaster of this area, and he had a home near Matthews United Methodist Church on Country Place Drive. That was where his house was, and he ran a general store out of there, the post office. He took a stagecoach there to go down to Monroe and up to Charlotte to deliver mail. So people would address things to Fullwood Station, since it was out of his house, and that was his last name. Then, of course, we talked about the railroads. When that came through, it became known as Matthews. The town was actually incorporated in 1879, and Solomon Reed, J. Solomon Reed, I was trying to think of the other name. He's kind of the father of Matthews, because he took the charter to Raleigh to get Matthews incorporated as a town in 1879. He took it himself. So, other people came together to do that, but he was the one that took it, Jeremiah Solomon Reed. And in 1880, so just 1 year after the town was officially called Matthews, there were 191 residents. It's changed a lot. We have like over 30,000 now. So the impact of the railroad, as we talked about, that was late 19th century, and it just changed everything. There's our depot and the seaboard. And I didn't touch on that. So it was the Carolina Central Railway originally, and then it changed to Seaboard Airline Railroad, which is again why you see Seaboard around town. And I believe something just opened here called Seawood.
Bobby,
yes.
You may not even know that, but our buildings
I know they're
are named for the Matthews
Right.
history.
I thought there were a lot out here. Those,
I live in Fullwood Ridge.
very good.
We have a restaurant, Seaboard Grill.
That's what it was that just opened, right?
Crestdale opened. Victor Station's gonna open in October.
That's very exciting.
It is interesting.
I love
You'll
that.
have to add that
I will, yeah.
to our display.
I'll do that. Thank you. Brenda's known me since I was like a little boy, so which is exciting. Yeah. No, she is not. Yeah. So yeah, it's nice that have all this history around. So yeah, you see it around town and right here where you live. So which is very exciting. So yeah, the growth and development. So in 1884, there were 8 merchants listed in downtown Matthews, mostly general stores. Renfro wasn't open just yet, but that came. The Heath and Reed General Store, which is where Weaver, Bennett, and Bland is. The Heath and Reed General Store was built by Jeremiah Solomon Reed, who also built the Reed House. So that's where that name comes from. And that had, it was a general store, and he also had cotton gins in the back. And then when Renfro opened just down the street, they also had cotton gins. By 1901, there we go, cotton gins were busy handling the local harvest. So cotton was like king in this area. And we have a big display in our museum about cotton because it grew so well here and it was all over. And we have stories, everybody picked it. Like the kids would be off from school to go pick the cotton, like from the little elementary school. And then they go back to school when cotton picking season was over. So it was just all, families, farming all around town. This is an agricultural community, as I said. So there were, 3 general stores, a bank, a drugstore, a hotel, the grist mill, and the livery stable, and a blacksmith shop. And we'll talk about where some of these things are, which is where I have photos over there so you can see how things have changed. But briefly, the photo right here, so if I can point, this is the livery stable, which is where Grace O'Malley's is now. So that's Moxie Mercantile, if you can see the white part up there. When BB&T bought the Bank of Matthews, they tore down the stable and those 2 buildings right there to make way for what is now Grace O'Malley's. It's been several things over the years. That's where that was. But these buildings still survive, Moxie Mercantile, Sante, and then the Ballroom Dancing and Bear Food. So that's what that is.
Where was the hotel?
Oh, yes, thank you. The hotel, the Williams Hotel, was on the corner where Stumptown Station is and the salon, and I forget what's in between the two, another office. That corner right there at John and Trade Street. And it, like most things, so all these things were made out of wood. So there were many fires that destroyed a lot of these buildings, unfortunately, including the Williams Hotel. However, the Stumptown Station, they have the original doors to the Williams Hotel. That's where theirs look a little bit different going into the bar right there. And they, not too long ago, they had like a grant so they could have them refurbished. And I was just told recently that they apparently have the desk that was at the hotel in storage at Stumptown Station. So I've got to find out where that is because that'd be great to have. So that's where that was. And then the grist mill is right behind Grace O'Malley's where their office is now. Manna, I'm trying to think of the name, that's the office that's in there. It's just an office building, but that was the grist mill. The stable, I showed you where that was, and the blacksmith shop, I want to say it was kind of near, I think it was behind the stable, somewhere around in that way. Here's a photo of the drugstore. So this is how we talk about Matthews continuing to grow. The drugstore was located where Zab's place is, at that corner, so the opposite corner of Trade and John. That's Doc Yandel right there in the tie. He was the pharmacist. So Dr. Reed and Doc Yandel opened the pharmacy. And then obviously you can do prescriptions. You could get the soda fountain, which is very popular. People would all come to get Doc's shaved ice Coca-Colas from even from Charlotte, because they were actual Coca-Colas. And what's that?
With codeine.
Yeah, well, yes. And so, but you could get like flower arrangements in there. They were apparently partnered with like a florist in Charlotte, so if there were funerals or anything you need to get flowers for, you could order from there. Bus tickets, everything you could get from the local drugstore. And that building was originally 2 stories. Again, a fire destroyed it. They built back that bottom level, all out of brick, and kept that corner door. So Zab's place has that corner door, which is what the drugstore had originally.
Had good comic books.
Yes, comic. Oh yeah, there are actually. I just found some stories about it. Somebody was telling me going in there and getting comic books. Yes, at the drugstore. And like obviously that was where people would go to like hang out and talk and get all the news because so many people were there hanging out at drugstore. We have like a mini recreation of it in the museum, which is fun. So we have like a little, the bar right there, so you can like see what it looked like. These are some of the architectural landmarks and historic sites. So the Reed House I mentioned, Jeremiah Solomon Reed built the Reed House and gave it to his sister. This is an interesting thing. She married a Reed from different states, so still spelled the same, but she married a Reed, Dr. Reed, but it was given to her from her brother. And it's Queen Anne style. The Historical Foundation owns it, and we rent it out for special events and meetings. The Women's Club obviously does the Christmas teas, which many of you may know about. I believe those reservations still start October 1st, so get those if you want to go. And then we also, the Historical Foundation also owns the museum. So the museum is the next building, the Massey Clark House. It was built in 1879 by E.J. Funderburk to lure a doctor up here from Florida. We believe from letters that Dr. Massey was like a Civil War doctor. That's how Mr. Funderburk found out about him. And he wanted another doctor in town. So he said, hey, if you come up here and live, you can live here free for a year. I have a house ready for you. So he came up with his family and moved into it. The Massey family was in our house until about 1925, and then the Clark family moved in, Clarence Clark. And Clarence worked with the railroad. I can't remember what he did, but I know he worked with the railroad. And then his son, Paul, and his wife, Lucy Clark, moved into it. And their daughter, Jane Clark, finally sold it to the town of Matthews so nothing would happen to it around 77. And then the Help Center opened up into it. The Help Center has been in Matthews for 25 years, I think, is the anniversary this year. Longer than that?
More than that. I mean, this is 24. It started
1979, so yeah. They've been around for a long time. But the Help Center moved to Ames Street. They needed a bigger location. The town was trying to figure out what to do with the house afterwards, and the Historical Foundation bought it. We took the inside back to the way it originally looked, so you can see the shiplap walls and the wood floors and everything. And then we turned it into a museum in 2013.
And so can you tell them where that is?
Yeah, so that is that little yellow house between Christopher's and Moo and Brew. And we're open Thursday through Saturday from 10 to 4:30. So,
And that'll charge.
and there's no admission. Admission is free. We do special events. I do speaking events like this around town to let people know about the museum. And we're very proud of our little heritage museum. There's a lot more inside than you'd think from that tiny little exterior. Like, we have 3 galleries right now, and a hallway full of different things, and we do changing exhibits. I'm getting ready to change it out right now, so that you can keep coming back and learning more, which is exciting. And then the other main thing is the Downtown Historic District. So that whole commercial district, Renfro, the Heath and Reed building, what's now Moxie Mercantile, all those buildings, that's like our downtown urban core of Matthews that's historic. And that whole district is a registered National Historic Site. So there's a plaque near Renfro's out front that talks about that. Heath and Reed, like I said, General Store, Funderburk Brothers Complex, which was the Moxie Mercantile and all that. And then the post office, which is now Carolina Beer Temple. So that building was built in 1939 for the post office. It was the first building built for a post office in Matthews. Like I said, originally it was out of Mr. Fullwood's house. It was also for a brief amount of time that little white building that's cabled to Renfro Hardware. That they ran the post office out of the front of that before it was Pop's Grill. I mean, that building's been all kinds of things. David even told me from Renfro that building's actually moved over the years. They've rolled it down the street to where it is now. It was on the opposite side of Renfro, which is why it's cabled to the building, because it has been moved so much. And then Matthews today. So in 2000, the town broke ground to what is now, the main green and the town hall and everything with the depot. Before that, which I have photos of, there were just some little buildings through there. The original town hall and actually, I want to get the picture. The original town hall and the police station were beside the Massey Clark house. Which one is it? Okay. I know I have it. Well, we can come look over here. But anyway, that building, so the building is now gone beside where Moo and Brew is now. So there was a building there that was built in the 50s for the town hall offices and Duke Power offices. They shared. So Duke Power was on one side, the town was on the other. Then Duke Power moved out. The police station moved into the back of the building, and we had one jail cell. And then that building got torn down to make way for all of this. And then just this past March, Matthews celebrated its 145th anniversary being a town. And now, like I said, we have over 30,000 residents of Matthews compared to our 191 that we had in 1880. So it has changed a whole lot. We still have that nice, friendly charm, I think, especially in the downtown area. Eleanor and I were just talking about that on the way over here, how nice it is just being in the downtown area and I love just seeing so many people going everywhere. Like, it reminds me of the stories and the things I read of how Matthews used to be, everybody doing their business and walking around town. So I'm glad that we still have that. So this is the last slide, and now I can take questions, and then we can look at some photos of different things. Yes. Miss Eleanor, will you come up so I can introduce you? Eleanor has been a volunteer at the museum for 9 years. 9 years. And helped me get started, really, when I took over last year. I was going to be temporary, and I'm there a year later. So I love it, though. I'm so glad I'm there. We're a good team. We have a lot of wonderful volunteers that work with us. And
we can always use more.
We can definitely always use more. We love, we have 3-hour shifts that we work. So you take 1 3-hour shift, come in from 10 to 1 or 1 to 4, and then you just talk to people when they come in and show them around the museum if they have any questions. It's a lot of fun. And then Eleanor is also great at arranging little get-togethers with all of our volunteers. So we do that probably once a quarter is what we try to do, so we can all get to see each other.
Well, because we don't see each other because we each have our own shifts.
Yeah.
So unless you pass when you're off of your shift, but it's a really easy thing to do. I came here with no knowledge of this. I came from Atlanta and then Savannah, and I moved here because of both of my son and daughter. And I thought, I got to learn something about this. So that's how I came to volunteer at the museum. And I've loved it. It's an easy thing to do, and you feel like you're doing something for the community because you really are. Mm-hmm. And we get visitors from literally around the world. Last week it was England.
Yeah,
I
England.
can't remember where, and I should know.
Yeah, 2 couples from England.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Premier League in football. But anyway, we literally do get them from all over the country and all over the world. So it just makes it kind of interesting. And it's very relaxing. So we would love to have other volunteers because we have another exciting thing that's coming up that, can we even say?
We can mention a little bit, yeah. So we're going to be working with the town I can mention a little bit until it's all official, but yeah. We're going to be working with the town on the depot. So we're, the depot, the Welcome Center. The depot was originally moved about 20 years ago, so it's time to renovate the inside of it. So we're working on that, and we're going to help the town run the visitor center, Welcome Center for the town. So when everybody comes in, it's a good link, because, visit the Welcome Center, learn a little bit of the railroad, go to the museum, and learn more about the history of Matthews. So it's a great tie-in that we're really excited about. All right. Who has any questions about all this? Yes, ma'am.
I live in Crestdale Court.
Oh, yes, thank you.
And as we were getting ready for the move, I learned about the Crestdale community,
Yes.
which is very important. And we talked about Fullwood and we talked about Finser, but the Crestdale story is really interesting. And I would love to see all of our buildings have a plaque with the name on it and what it means in Matthews.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. Yeah, Crestdale, I have a Crestdale slide, and it got left out of this presentation. So Crestdale was the African-American community of Matthews near the Harris Teeter corporate offices. So near Target on that back road. You go through the Crestdale area. It was originally called Tanktown because the water tank was there for the railroad. The railroad runs right by Crestdale, so the water tank was there. A lot of people that lived out there worked on the railroad. And then it became known as Crestdale in 63. There was a Rosenwald school out there. I don't know if any of you know about Mr. Rosenwald. He built schools around the country. How many hundreds?
Actually, throughout the country, it's all over the South. It's Texas, it's Arkansas, it's everywhere, over 5,000 schools.
So you had 5,000 schools. Julius Rosenwald, he was with Sears and Roebuck, and he would come in and have the seed money to start schools for African-American communities so the children could learn. So he would bring in everything, get the materials for them, and then the community would build it so they would have a part in it. Like Habitat for Humanity. And he built the majority in North Carolina.
Built over 500.
Over 500 in North Carolina.
6 schools in North Carolina, the most of any state.
which is amazing. And Crestdale had one of those Rosenwald schools. Again, a fire destroyed it in like the late 70s. But because it was originally Matthews Colored School, obviously when that all changed, they got rid of that name and changed it to Crestdale School. So then the area became known as Crestdale instead of Tanktown. We actually don't know where the name Crestdale came from. We've heard all kinds of stories like, oh, there were guys sitting at Renfro just talking about, let's name it that. Then other things, there was a street in African American community somewhere in North Carolina. Crestdale Road was in there, so they decided to name it. So we don't know where that name comes from. But it's a fascinating part of our town. There's some very influential people that came from there. Harvey Boyd grew up there. Harvey designed the Mecklenburg County seal. So anything that you see from Mecklenburg County, Harvey designed at 19 years old. He would hitchhike from Crestdale all the way to West Charlotte. Yeah, to go to high school because they had an arts program and he wanted to do graphic arts. So he ended up entering a contest that Mecklenburg County had, I want to say in the 50s, 60s, to design the seal. Designed the seal, and that's the one that we use today. And he's from Crestdale and still lives in Crestdale. He lives in the house that he grew up in. His dad, Sam Boyd, was like the unofficial mayor of Crestdale. And his mom, Viola Boyd, had a beauty salon and like was very big in doing beauty for African Americans in the whole area. Yeah. Little house, but like a little, just nice, common little house you wouldn't know. And Harvey just wrote a book about the seal. I know I've seen a flyer about it, but yeah, he's fascinating, and he's been at events that we've had. So he's in the museum. There's a thing talking about him and shows the seal. And then Walter Stewart is another person. He ended up joining with Johnny Rivers, right? Being a manager, a road manager, so he's got records and everything. We had a photo of him holding one of his gold records in the museum. So a lot of very interesting people came from the little Crestdale community, so I wouldn't even know. Yes?
Is there any history of the Fincher Farm and McKee Farm
I
that we're on?
I don't have, I mean, we know it, but I don't know the full, I would have to ask I know the Fincher family.
He's
Yeah.
one of those,
Yeah.
but it was a large, it wasn't Doug's parents, but it was relatives.
I got a book in my room that Tim's styled this, but the other one of his two sisters. I got a book that she wrote about it.
And
You need to get him to share that with
yeah,
you
we will share
today.
that. Yeah, we'll get that. And we also, Paula mentions it in her book. There's a book, and I meant to bring it, called From Cotton to Corporate that Paula Lester wrote. The library has 4 copies, I know, because I was there the other day and saw it. And we have 1 copy at the museum you can look at when you're there. But that's like the unofficial history book of Matthews, and Paula wrote it, oh gosh, I don't know.
Is
90.
she still?
Paula's around. Paula moved to South Carolina, but Paula was a commissioner for like 2 terms in Matthews and loved history and is the reason why we got so much. Like she pretty much made the whole museum. Once the town said, y'all can have a museum, she said, okay, and started contacting people. And then we got all these donations. I mean, when you come to the museum, it's an amazing thing. We have, that's what I should talk about. We have the original teller cage from the Bank of Matthews in our one gallery, a piece of it. We actually have the entire teller cage and the safe door is stored in Public Works, but we could only fit a piece in the corners, so you can see with the teller cage. We have a switchboard. There's switchboard stories about the ladies that ran the switchboard out of their house, Mame and Joe, and how they would listen in on everybody's phone calls and correct people's recipes they were sharing and all that. And then, of course, we talk about the Rosenwald School, Crestdale. We talk about early living in Matthews. And then we talk about the community, which is where the drugstore is, and Sustar's Pool, which I don't know if many of you know about that. Sustar's Pool was open. Yes, where Walgreens and those townhomes are. There was a pool bigger than a football field in that area. That Barnum Star dug out with his son-in-law and a bunch of people because they wanted a community pool. They lined it with wood, and then on top of the wood, it was fresh sand. Every year they would bring in fresh sand for the Sustar's Pool. And they would pump in water from natural aquifer under the town. 3 aquifers under the town, and then they drain it and then put in fresh sand at the beginning of the next year. But it was so big, it had like a swing set in it. It had a huge army flotation thing that they used to cross rivers in the army. That was there you could jump off of, and a zip line. And then there was a building where people would, there's stories in our museum on our video about people who would go dancing there and everything at night. So it was a big community place, and it was open until 1999. It was Matthews Country Club by that point. I want to say it changed in the late 70s. But yeah, then it closed in '99, and now Walgreens and everything is in that area. But
They had good hot dogs.
yes, hot dogs and Coca-Colas, that's a big thing. And another big thing, that Barnum Cesar was a twin, and he would have twin picnics there for the Carolinas. So we have 2 photos. We have a photo on our panel in the museum with all these twins, but we just got a wonderful donation from 1929 from the second annual Twins Picnic. And you can really see all the twins. It's like so clear. And Barnum's in it with his brother, and he had a big beard and looked like Santa Claus, they said. So he sticks out. But a man just donated that photo to us, and I'm so happy to have it. We got it reframed with museum protecting glass so it won't fade or anything. So we have a lot of wonderful little things in the museum. Another little thing is Uten pottery. I didn't mention that. Rufus Uten had a kiln in Matthews for about 2 decades and just made utilitarian pottery, churns, coffee mugs, little pots and everything. We have some of those in the museum. And his kiln's still, around. The town is going to be fixing it up and putting a little pocket park behind it and little walking trails. But it's off Main Street of Matthews, which is beside the fire station, and then down that road is Jefferson Street on the left. That's where Uten pottery is. And like I said, the town's going to fix it up so you can see it and everything, but we have his pots in our museum, which is exciting. Oh yeah, and that was also a National Historic Site, thank you, designated in 2015. So, that's a big thing as well. Because it was kind of the only surviving, what am I trying to say? Factory, I guess you could say, in Matthews. Yes?
It's hard to say how long I lived in Matthews, because when we first came down, we lived in Raintree.
Oh yeah, And
Raintree was Matthews. And then Charlotte decided they were going to annex several different areas.
Right.
So all the lawyers got involved, and a lot of money went out, and we lost. So we were Charlotte. And so I don't know how many years I've lived in Matthews.
Yeah, and Matthews is now, I want to say, 17 square miles. But yeah, it's changed a lot, the boundaries of the town. Anyway, did you have something else, Brenda?
Well, the Crestdale name hasn't stopped. Our middle school.
Yeah, Crestdale Middle School we have. Mhm.
As you know, there's not many of us from Matthews. All my friends need to know where these names came
Right.
from.
Yes. Well, yeah, I'd be happy to write things up so people put them in the building so we can have where these names came from. Yeah. It's very exciting. And I love that everything is named. I have heard little things that they were named out here, so now I know that there's even more. That's very exciting.
There actually is a historic sequence of who owned property in Crestdale.
Oh, yeah, we do have that. We have the land sales, yeah.
Very interesting. You'll find out who owned it, who gave land, what kind of land, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the land of Crestdale was actually bought by a white doctor named Dr. Gribble, but then he sold it to white families, black families. He did not care. He sold it to everybody. And Barbara, who was the original director of the museum for 10 years, found out a lot of interesting things talking to the Crestdale residents about how they, I don't know how to explain it, I wanted to say different words, but although they were separate, they didn't really feel separated from Matthews. They were in town, they did everything. Bud Potts Fish Market was run by an African-American man right near where Portrait Gallery is now. And he would get fresh fish off the train, because the train ran to Wilmington. And he had his little barbershop right beside it. That was right there with all the other businesses on the main area. Another thing I wanted to point out when we get up in a little bit, we have the Historical Foundation of the Town of Matthews put together these, we have a driving tour and a walking tour, so you'll see a lot of these places on there. And then the walking tour also talks about the mural that's at the library, which again has a lot of these places. If you've been to the library, they have a big mural in the back that talks about all the areas of town. So we have those, and then of course our museum brochure. And the rest of the photos on the table over there, Paul Lesser put together this collage of photos that used to be a town hall, but it's called Matthews Remembered, and it shows what I was talking about, our house. So the museum now is at the bottom, and what it looked like before is at the top. So how it's changed. It was, we had a cotton field right beside us in this little lot, and then, because of course everybody grew cotton, so, but that's what it looks like now, so. Anyone else? This has been a lot of fun. Yes, ma'am.
I've noticed 2 buildings. One time I was voting, because I was living in Charlotte, at a building that looked like a Masonic temple kind of place.
Oh, yes.
The other place is the Women's Study Club, and moved over. Can you talk about those two buildings?
I don't know a lot about the Masonic Lodge, but I know, yeah, that's what it is. But the Women's Club was built by the American Legion. I don't know, remember, I should know when, because I'm not connected to the internet, but it's old. It was, yeah, and then they gave it to the women's clubs. The women's clubs had it for years, I mean, a really long time. But yeah, the Matthews Women's Club, they do the teas, like I said, through our.
Across from the school.
Yeah, directly across from Matthews Elementary School. And another fun thing, speaking about the schools, so the community center, which is there now, was Matthews School. And there's a photo in the museum of what it used to look like before the columns got put up and the steps were changed, but that was the school of Matthews. I went to Matthews Elementary, which is the part that is there now, but we still had classes in the community center because it was still part of us, part of Matthews Elementary. I think it still said Matthews Elementary at the top when I was there. So I had classes over there in that building and loved it. And then I did the Matthews Playhouse growing up and was in the Playhouse over there. And then it changed officially to the community center, which is what it is now. And the Ag building as well. That was the old agricultural building, which is now the McDowell Arts Center, right by the community center. And we had music classes in the top and art classes in the bottom when I went to school there. So that was, again, part of the Matthews School blueprint. But the first one-room schoolhouse at Matthews was actually where Stumptown Park is. And I forget the name of it, but it was right in there, and there's a photo of it at the museum as well, before Matthews School was built. And that school, which then became Matthews High School, the community center, it was like the second public high school in Mecklenburg County, I want to say. It's in our museum, so it's fascinating, the history that we have tying back to everything.
Bobby, the Crestdale community can also be seen by our people down by the railroad tracks.
Yes.
If they go down by the railroad track right in Matthews.
Yeah, and there's a heritage trail that walks through Crestdale. It starts at Town Hall and the library right in the back. It's about a mile long, I want to say. We did part of it as a volunteer get-together. But there's little markers everywhere, signs that talk about what things used to be, like the House of Prayer, the different churches out there. Weaves past, now I can't think of Pastor Whitley's church's name.
I can't even.
Pastor Whitley is that, what? I can't think of it. Mount Moriah. Mount Moriah, yes. It takes you about Mount Moriah, yeah. So you can go through there, and it shows you where the Crestdale Community Center was and all that. So there's a lot of interesting things just walking right through there that you can see. And it starts right there at the back parking lot of the library. You go up around the architecture firm, and you can get to it.
And from what
very
I
pretty.
understand, the burning, I mean, not burning, but when the school burned, that's when those children were incorporated into the
math.
community school.
Yeah, I believe that is right, yeah.
It was originally a black
Yeah,
community school.
it was.
So you'd walk southeast then from the center of town on the railroad?
Yes, to get out to Crestdale. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's how it goes. That's the way it runs through.
That's right where the traffic light is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a light right there at the Harris Teeter corporate office, yes.
I just toured the caboose last
Oh, yeah,
week, and I never knew what was in a caboose before.
Yeah.
And it's like a mini house.
Yes, yeah.
Kitchen and a wood stove or a coal stove, whatever it would be. And all the chairs sitting up high, and it could use some decorating touches.
Yes, so.
It's just darling.
It is, yeah,
And
the
I
little.
had no idea.
Yeah, go in the little caboose when it's open. That's another fun thing. With this renovation of the inside of the depot, we're gonna be renovating the caboose because it needs a fresh coat of paint and everything inside. And there will be labels that says what things we were used for, because, people would stay in there, the conductors, so that's what the caboose was for. We're gonna put things in there so people know what a caboose was used for. But I still love going to the caboose. I've taken my kids since they were little, and I love just going inside and looking at it.
And the caboose is located,
Yeah, the caboose is located right by the depot near Town Hall, so right there on the railroad tracks, at the library, yes, in Town Hall. And the depot was moved to that location when they did all the renovation. It was up further. Originally it was up closer to the Heath and Reed building. Then it was moved back when there was a Harris Teeter in that shopping center. And there was Cactus Rose Mexican restaurant was in the depot originally. And I remember going there as a kid because they had little arcades and I loved playing them. Yes, ma'am.
The trail you were talking about that goes behind the library.
The Heritage Trail.
Yeah, when you follow it around, you go over the railroad tracks and come back, and you go by the Masonic Temple, and there's a sign out in front that tells who the original members were.
Okay.
And one of those is the man who ran the fish store.
Bud Potts, okay. So yeah, so if you do the Heritage Trail, it'll take you by the temple, Sonic Temple, and tell you more information about it. So I have not done the entire thing, I'm sorry. We did part of it as the volunteers, but we did make the whole trail, so I gotta do the whole thing and see what all it tells me. Anyone else? These are good questions, this has been fun. Yes, sir?
We, on the Windsor Senior Forum in October, we hope to have Tim Fincher here to tell the story of this property that we live on, the history of Fincher Farms.
Is that in the works?
I'm working on that right now.
Yay.
The fourth Thursday of October.
Fourth Thursday of October, Fincher Farms history. Tim Fincher is going to be here. I grew up with Tim's son, Silas. We were the same age from school, yeah. And Christina, his wife, so I knew them forever. Yeah.
And I understand there's still a Funderbunks in the.
Funderburgs, yeah.
Do they have a lot of history that they?
The Funderburgs, yeah. Another fun thing, I need to mention our cemetery tour. So, thank you. So yeah, the Funderburgs. Yes, Tommy Funderburg's still around, and I'm forgetting his wife's name. They were just in the museum about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they were telling me about the stories of the bank, because his dad built the bank, and she worked there, and that's how she met Tommy. But yeah, they still live around, and they were telling me about a house they moved. That was originally where the doctor's office is on the other side of Christopher's. I forget what park that is, but they moved it all the way down to Main Street. Like, again, moving a giant house down the road, and then they tucked it back in there off Main Street. But fun thing that another one of our docents has done, Michael Meath, he's put together a cemetery tour, and the next one's coming up this month, the last Saturday of the month, at 10 o'clock. I'll look at the thing, but he talks about the Funderburgs, the Reeds, the Stoker sisters who ran the switchboard. They have fun stories because we found out when they would take a break because they needed to go into town, they like to enjoy adult beverages and have a good time. They would leave, we've heard it was a nephew or a neighborhood boy, but anyway, they'd leave this teenage boy in charge of the switch phone, and he and his friends would try to call like Hollywood and stuff, like, hey, put us in touch with such and such. And then the operators knew, no, this is this is not a real phone call. But anyway, they would also cut down a Christmas tree for the Stoker sisters every year and decorate it in their house. And for many years, Michael shares this on his tour, someone would place a little Christmas tree at their grave, on the anniversary of their death, and they're buried right beside each other in the Matthews Historic Cemetery. That cemetery is right near Christ Covenant Church off Pleasant Hill Road. No, it's not Pleasant. It's a little tiny road off Covenant Church Road, and then it's a tiny little road that goes off to it. Because it was Pleasant Hills Methodist Church that was connected to it, so it was a graveyard. Then the church burned, and now it's just a cemetery because it's not connected to a church anymore. But Michael tells stories about the Hooks and Orr families, like their stories from war. Hooks and Orr has the posterior Matthews, and then I'm trying to think who else he talks about. Reeds, Renfro's. So another kind of fun thing is the Funderburgs. The Funderburgs had pretty much the one side of the street, all the buildings they owned, with the livery stable and the Baker Matthews and all that, and then the Renfro's had the other side, where Renfro Hardware is, up to where that with the farmers market, and then that little up to Zab's place, that little building right there. So it was like Renfro's one side, Funderburgs the other. But yeah, there are still Funderburgs around in Matthews. Anything else? I would love to just have you come to the museum, because then you could learn even more from myself or one of our wonderful volunteers. But if you can and you want to, take some of our brochures and look at the photos and everything. And you can see photos of the museum in there. I've got that information. And then if Windsor Run ever wants to do a driving tour, you're welcome to take the bus and, stop at all these places. And actually the cemetery is in here, so it talks about how to get to it. So that's in there. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Thank you for your applause. Yes.
Question. Tell us, maybe you already did, when the museum is open and the hours that somebody would be there.
So again, we're open Thursday through Saturday from 10 to 4:30. I'm there every Thursday and Friday and most Saturdays. And admission's free, so you can come in anytime, no admission charge at all. And we love, giving tours. That's what we really love doing, what the volunteers love doing, is taking people on a tour. You can do a self-guided tour, you're welcome to, because we have some people that like to just read everything, and you're welcome to do that. Take photos of everything. And then, like I said, we have the little short video that talks stories of Matthews, and it's just fun to hear, residents, long-term time residents, sadly, some of which are not here anymore, tell the stories of the past and how things were. So please come see us. It'd be great to see you all. And thank you again for having me out today.